Welcome to Hometown Movies. My name is Michael Kelly and I'm your host tonight for another program looking at the art community here in Flint, Michigan. My guest tonight is Tom Fielder. Tom is an actor with experience from Flint to Broadway and back again. And we did want to show you a picture from a play that was done here at the University of Michigan in Flint in the fall of 1977. The play was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and the picture which Drew, I think we're going to try and get up here now. It shows Tom as Brick and a very talented actor named Michael Kelly as Big Daddy. And that's the first place I met Tom was back there at the University of Michigan. I think Al Loop directed the play.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Tom, how did you first get involved with theater?
I got involved in high school. I went to Northern High, and James Olson was the drama teacher there. Mm-hmm. And he really developed a strong program. I was in 9 plays in high school.
Wow.
And most people, if they're act or are involved in the plays in high school, maybe 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. But we entered the one-act play competitions. We always did 1 musical, but we did 2 straight plays also. So I started out with a very well-rounded background.
What was the first time that you stood out on a stage and said, "Boy, I want to do this"?
Well, it was probably my first show. It was Paint Your Wagon, and I was a sophomore, and I was scared. Mm-hmm. And I had a small part, maybe 8 lines, but I got to sing and dance in the chorus, and boy, I loved that. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as we had our first show and the applause started coming, and I was standing in the back when we were taking our bows, I said, "I think I want to stand in the front." And I just kept working at it, and I think I've developed into a pretty good talent.
When you and I met, we were doing serious drama, but you've done a lot of musical as well. Mm-hmm. Do you consider yourself a singer and a dancer as well as an actor?
Yes, I do. And for a while there, I considered myself more of a singer and dancer than an actor. I think the singing and dancing came easier to me. It was more natural. But the acting was something that I had to study and I had to develop. And I think as I matured, I became a better actor also.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you graduated from high school, you already had a fair amount of theatrical experience. Where did you go to college first?
Well, I went 1 year down to Adrian College. Mm-hmm. And actually, they didn't have much of a theater department at all. They had a pretty good music department, but I just didn't fit in there. I think that first year I majored in intramural sports. Mm-hmm. But I had a great time. I joined a fraternity and learned how to drink beer. One of the highlights.
A wonderful year. What a wonderful year.
Yeah, and the next year I transferred back up to the University of Michigan Flint, and their first show that year was The Fantastics, mm-hmm. and that was directed by Pedro Silva.
Yeah, I know. Pedro was a wonderful man. I like Pedro.
And I played Matt, the young boy in that, and that was a musical. And once again, I loved it and just changed my major. My major was music then, and I changed my major from music to theater.
How did you find your family reacted? I mean, a lot of times people who are interested in theater get little support, to say the least. How did your family respond to that?
Well, my dad didn't take to it too well. Mm-hmm. He just thought it was, extracurricular activities. Mm-hmm. But my mother, who was a singer and a dancer when she was growing up, and I think I learned a lot from her just from watching her tap dance around the kitchen when we were doing dishes. Mm-hmm. She, I think, secretly liked it. Mm-hmm. And she did encourage me, and they sort of, after a while, they took it for granted that this was the area I was going to pursue.
Did your dad ever come backstage after a show and sort of acknowledge, well, you weren't half bad, kid?
I don't think he ever came backstage, but I think he did acknowledge it after a while.
And UM-Flint, what was that experience like? Because that's something that a lot of people who are interested in theater and the stage might have access to. And you were there in the late 70s, you're back there now. How would you evaluate the experience that you got there?
Well, I'd say it was a very good experience. Because especially when you're right out of high school and you're deciding what college to go to or where you want to go to learn your craft, the arguments are a big program as opposed to a small program. I'm a firm believer that you learn theater by doing theater, not in the classroom. You learn it by being in the shows, you learn acting by taking on different type parts and just seeing how the reactions are and what you can pick up from the different directors. And so UM-Flint is a small enough program that I was able to get experience in quite a few major roles. And that is where I think I've started to develop and learn my craft.
When you left U of M the first time, where did you go?
Well, when I first left, I'd been leaving and coming back. I left, I went down to Nashville and did 2 seasons at Opryland. Actually, I went down for 1 season, then I came back, and then that's when we did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Then I went back for the next season, and then from there I got into a dinner theater in Tampa, Florida, and we did Cabaret. And then at that time I was dancing at Flint Institute of Music under Gayla Zukevich. And I got in contact with her, so I came back up and I did the Nutcracker. And I danced the role of the Snow King that year, which was kind of a stretch, but it turned out real well. And then I did another show with Flint Community Players, Carousel, which Pat Victor directed, who is now in charge of New Vic Supper Theater, but she was with Flint Community Players at that time. And then I went out to Los Angeles, and I spent approximately 2 years in Los Angeles. And things started off kind of slow.
What a surprise! Yeah.
First, I was making sandwiches in this little place in Hollywood. I made a sandwich for Bill Dana.
Wow, there you go.
I made a sandwich for Steve Allen.
All right.
And
well, it's fairly closely related people there.
I made a sandwich for Gary Coleman.
Ah, there you go.
The whole spectrum of the theater. And then I got involved with this group called Nelson Eddy Jeanette MacDonald Singers. And we'd go around and do like a musical review of their greatest hits. Then I left the sandwich shop place and I got a job as a singing waiter at this really nice Italian restaurant called Luigi's.
You're moving up, see, now you're singing.
I slowly but surely, yeah. And then I started working out at San Bernardino. They have a Civic Light Opera, and it's partial equity, and I joined the Equity Candidate Membership Program.
Okay. Why don't you explain equity for our people who may not know?
Well, equity is the actors' union, and if you can get in it and get in an equity show, you make very good money. But unfortunately, only 5% of all equity actors are working at any given time. And competition in major cities is just tremendous.
And it's not easy to get in. It's not like you go down to the Union Hall and plop down your 50 bucks and get your card.
No, the Equity Candidate Membership Program, you need 50 points or 50 weeks of internship. Which means that you're in the show and you perform and you get paid hardly anything, and you're doing the same things that equity performers are doing right next to you, and they're making good money. So it's a test of your intestinal fortitude, probably.
Well, what's a union for?
Exactly.
That's probably part of the deal. The deal is probably, look, we're going to hire 10 guys and pay them scale, but you got to let us hire 10 guys and not pay them anything.
That's exactly.
That's probably the deal.
Yeah.
It breaks out for the producer. It breaks out about even, you know.
Yeah. So I did 2 shows at San Bernardino. I did Little Abner, which starred that famous actor Joe Namath.
You're rubbing shoulders with all the things.
Joe is a real nice guy.
Best known for the pantyhose.
Yeah, and shaving on television. He had to lead in Little Abner. He couldn't sing, he couldn't dance, and he couldn't act, but he sold out every performance. Producers loved him. He was a nice guy, though, which that makes it nicer when the leads are nice guys. And I also did a production of a show called Plain and Fancy, which is about the Amish community in Pennsylvania Dutch country, and gave Barbara Cook her first big part on Broadway. She got her start out of that. And then from San Bernardino, I got involved with another production of Cabaret, which was at the Scott Hardy Dinner Theater in Los Angeles.
You don't mean the musical cabaret, you mean like...
No.
Oh, the musical of cabaret?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this was the first equity dinner theater in Los Angeles County.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it folded about 3 shows later, but I continued to build up my points or weeks for my equity card, and I had 36 weeks in, and then I auditioned for the Los Angeles company of Pirates of Penance, which was produced by Joseph Papp in the New York Shakespeare Festival. And when I got that show, I became equity just like that.
All right.
Yeah. And I know it's the old catch-22. You can't audition for an equity show unless you're equity, and you can't get your card unless you're in an equity show.
Yeah.
But sometimes they do have open auditions, and more so in Los Angeles than New York, because as far as the unions go, there are less number of equity actors in Los Angeles, more SAG actors, which is the Screen Actors Guild, than there would be in New York. So I went to an open call, and I got called back, and then I got it, and I was on cloud 9.
Well, tell me about the production. This is a full-blown production of Pirates,
this was the big time. See, now that starred Barry Bostwick as the Pirate King, Pam Dauber as Mabel, and Andy Gibb as Frederick. They were the 2 young lovers. Joanne Worley was the nurse Ruth, and Clyde Revel, who I think did the original Fagin in New York. And we played 6 weeks in Los Angeles, and it was just the greatest time of my life. One show, Gregory Peck and Cary Grant came to see the show.
That's heavy.
And they were sitting next to each other out in the audience, and no one was looking at the stage. The whole audience was like, you know, and these guys they just radiated charisma. You know, there was just like a little glow around them out in the audience. Then that Los Angeles company became the national tour. And then we went up to San Francisco for 10 weeks. And Jim Belushi took over the role of the Pirate King. Patrick Cassidy of the Cassidy clan took over the role of Frederick. And those were our 2 billing stars. Then we went up to Seattle for 6 weeks, and Patrick Cassidy dropped out, and Peter Herman from Herman's Hermits took over. He was nice too. He was a good guy. Then from Seattle, went to Chicago. 10 weeks in Chicago. Then from Chicago, we went to Washington, D.C. And we got to perform at the White House for their Easter celebration with the egg roll on the lawn. We're not sure whether or not the Reagans saw us, but we kind of hoped they did, just so we could say so. Then we went up to Boston for 6 weeks, then back down to Philly for another 6 weeks. And then the tour closed, but 10 days before it closed, the producers from New York picked about 5 of us from the tour and put us in the Broadway show. And then we finished out the run on Broadway, which was about 8 months.
What was it like? I mean, you know, there probably were more comfortable situations to work in and all that, but to be on Broadway, that must have been an experience.
It really was. Just walking down the street, and you know, they have the sign up, and then they have the cast list underneath it, and seeing your name on that cast list on Times Square. We played the Minskoff Theatre. And no, you really felt like you accomplished something.
What was it like to come back? To come back after that?
Well, it has been different. But I think one of the reasons I have been able to come back is that I did perform on Broadway. And the competition is really tough in New York. And after the Broadway show, I did a couple off-Broadway shows and one off-Broadway show. But I never did hit another Broadway show. Actually, I did, but it got canceled. They were doing a restaging of the Three Musketeers, and I got a part in that. And then money troubles came up. And they changed producers, and they put it on the back burner. And then it finally did get produced, but with an entirely different cast, and it lasted maybe 10 days. never got out of it. So living in New York, I had a one-bedroom apartment that I had to pay $800 a month for, and I had to give that up finally. Then I had to find work just to eat and live. And then I found myself putting in 40, 45 hours a week just to maintain a living style in New York. And I was still going on some auditions, but I really wasn't involved like I wanted to be. So I decided that I should leave and come back and finish up my college education. I planned to go into grad school, get my master's, and then I planned to go back to a large city to pursue my professional career. But also I want to have that piece of paper that qualifies me to be a college instructor.
Yeah. If you had to do it over again, would you have finished your degree first time around? Or do you think the experience was worthwhile?
Well, I'd like to say yes, I would have, but I can't say I would have. You know, because I'm a much better student this time around.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still trying to make up some grades from that first stint. But all in all, I think even though I didn't finish my formal college education, I think my experiences in Los Angeles and Nashville and New York, I learned more about theater than I would have if I'd have stayed right away and finished my degree.